Welcome to The Art of Being Unstoppable, the podcast where women from every walk of life come together to break barriers, embrace their power, and live life on their own terms. I'm your host, Vicki McDougall, and each week we explore inspiring stories, actionable strategies, and empowering conversations to help you step into your confidence, amplify your voice, and create a life without limits. No matter where you are on your journey, this is your space to grow, thrive, and become unstoppable. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of The Art of Being Unstoppable. Today, I have the pleasure of being with Becky Spence. Thank you for coming today, Becky.
Thank you so much for having me.
So Becky is the owner of Checkpoint Advising. And I know tax time is just around the corner and, we all get, scared is maybe the best word, or frightened. But, after speaking to you, Becky, and you kind of explaining how you can little things that make it easier for people and, just a little bit of I have one line that I want to share right off the hop, because when you put this in pivot with purpose, the pause, it changes your path. A pivot isn't proof you failed. Oh my goodness. That is
Yeah.
like, I think every woman should have that written somewhere so that they can realize that pivoting is what makes us unstoppable.
Yes.
Oh,
And especially I feel like in our current economy, you have to be able to be flexible, whether it's with your personal finances, your business, your health. You have to be flexible and pivot when what you're doing isn't working for you.
exactly. And it's not a failure. It's just, and pivoting sounds better than change because people get afraid of change, right? We all
Yes.
do. But I know I jumped ahead, but I had to. I had to share that right off the hop. So, but please tell us a little bit about yourself before I keep rambling.
And yes, so I am a tax strategist and business coach, really specializing in service based businesses. And I fell into that niche because I spent almost 30 years working as a speech pathologist. But as I went through all the changes with insurance companies and all the regulations and all the things, I started to lose the joy and I realized it was time for a personal pivot. So I did a huge pivot. I still wanted to help people. And as I figured out what my business needed to really thrive, I realized I can help more people by helping their businesses rather than staying pigeonholed in my own business. So I did a career pivot, but I don't coach everyone into just like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. There's a lot of little pivots that you could do in your life that make a huge difference.
Oh, absolutely. And like I say this a lot on the podcast, small hinges swing big doors. And we
Yeah.
don't have to look at this as this, because that's when we get into overwhelm, when we see this big, change. Oh my gosh, I have to do this, I have to do that. But so you were a speech pathologist and you really loved what you did because you got to help families, you got to help children, you got to help people. And shifting to something more number focused, I mean, right, even when we're
Yeah.
even a strategy, like any kind of strategy, you have to look at the numbers. So how has that affected you in your daily, because that's a big change. Even though you had the business, you were still working that, but this is still so much different. How is that for you?
Well, I have really worked hard to find the similarities. So, being a therapist, your treatment plan, everything is data driven. And so looking at the data wasn't new to me. It was just, how do I report the data and how do I use the data? So in therapy, we kind of look at the data after the fact. How did they do
Right.
today or what are their trends? And and in business growth and tax um, strategy, we're really trying to strategize in the future. We're trying to make some really good projections so that we have a good outcome at the end of the year. So I've had to pivot kind of in terms of retrospective versus prospective thinking.
Yeah.
But I still approach it in a very systematic way. You know, with my patients, I had a treatment plan. With my clients, I call it a roadmap, and we have checkpoints along the way. So very bite-sized tasks and activities that we just check off as we go. And so I feel like I'm kind of bridging that gap.
Yeah, absolutely. I know it's so hard to be the one that's doing it all in your business, right? If we're working on the business and then we're working in the business and we're doing all these things and just adding all these tasks, we get back to the same position we were in before. If we've left corporate or if we've left another job, we start to lose our power, and our light starts to dim because we're not doing the things that light us up. So you helping with that roadmap and those little bite-sized pieces with your clients really helps them see that they don't have to do it all, right? Like they
Right.
don't have
I
to put
always
all in.
say my job is to help overcome the overwhelm. Especially in service based businesses, we were trained in a skill. We weren't
Yeah.
trained to be business managers. And so there's a large learning curve. And if I can kind of help people keep from reinventing the wheel and say, here are processes and systems that work that let you do more of what you love and condense those things that are either stressful or overwhelming, then I just want you to be more happy in running your business.
Yeah. And that is key, right? For us who are self-employed, right? Entrepreneurship can be very lonely and it can be very draining. And if we
Yes.
can set up the schedules and the systems to make everything run smoothly, it makes a huge difference.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Like, I know I'm not a back end person with all of this stuff in the computers and all figuring out all the funnels and all of this and all that. That doesn't light me up. So I would rather have
Right.
someone help me do all the things to get me to where I can shine in what I'm good at.
Yes, I think that's a key is knowing when to delegate and knowing what pieces to delegate. I hear all the time, well, my business is brand new. I can't afford to hire all the people. And so really being able to take a step back and find out where's my bottleneck, and let's just offload the biggest bottleneck first and see what it does for you. I think is a great first step for small businesses or young businesses.
How did it affect you personally when you shifted like for women listening to this podcast, and they're making a shift and they're on the edge and they're just not sure, right? Because I know when I jumped into this, I wasn't sure until I was. And once I was, there was no stopping me. But
Yes,
that was,
I think you're right.
yeah. So what do you think? Like what are your thoughts on that?
I think the biggest thing is to really remember your why. Why did you take this leap in the first place? And let that root you in what did you want to accomplish? For me personally, I didn't want anyone who took the leap into owning a small business, a startup, to feel like the threat of having to return to that W 2 job was constantly looming over their head. I really want to help people feel confident in their business and in their business decisions. And I think that once you start to feel that confidence, like you said, I didn't know, and then I knew. Once you can get to that place where I know, all of a sudden you're empowered to take the calculated risks and do all the things in a very kind of um, objective way. You can take the
Mhm.
gut feeling back. You look at your
Yeah.
numbers, and then all of a sudden it makes sense, and you can just start saying, "Okay, I see the next step very clearly."
And the first step is always the hardest. Wouldn't you agree with when you chose to pivot? Wasn't
Oh
that
yeah,
first?
I think the first step, and then you start to, especially if you do a large pivot, you're dealing with that imposter syndrome. And I know that sometimes people think it's overused, but I feel like, especially in women business owners, it is
Right.
a very real and large part of our cognitive load when we're trying something new. It's like,
Oh,
who am I to think I
absolutely.
could do this? And really, overcoming this story you tell yourself about yourself.
And I think, what you just said is so true. The story we tell ourselves about ourselves. Like that is so true. So do you, because you coach as well, your clients, so you don't just give them the systems, you coach them through everything.
Yes, yes. So we work through the little tasks. So most of my clients have weekly tasks, and they set the tasks. We work through learning how to choose what's important to the business for that week, and then every Friday we have a scorecard, and we look at what went well, what did I accomplish? What went well? Where were some challenges? And where do I need support around those challenges? And I think that's a big part of success when you're growing a business is knowing when you need support and being vulnerable and asking for that. We all do feel like, especially women, we're in the habit of doing it all. If there's dishes in the sink, we're the ones putting it in the dishwasher. That's just our habit. And so learning to say, hey, I need support around this really helps you accomplish your goals faster because there's going to be someone in your circle that has the answer.
Absolutely. So what do you think is one of the biggest, I mean, with the chaos and confusion in the world and the way our economy is, for small businesses, like what do you think is one of the things that hold us back, like for ourselves? Is it the overwhelm of everything that needs to be done? Is that what you find with your clients? Like what do you find is the most
I, I, I kind of see it this pendulum swing, and we're kind of on two ends of a continuum where I see small business owners running into some roadblocks and panicking, and they pivot too soon. Like they were just on the verge of a breakthrough and they gave up. They just pivoted because that challenge or roadblock seemed insurmountable. So I see that. And then on the other end of the continuum, I see a lot of people um, that kind of procrastinate in the need for the pivot. If I just work harder, if I just push harder, if I do the right things, and they end up in burnout when maybe pivoting a little bit sooner would have been key to letting them still love their business and still really move forward. And so all areas in between that, but those are the two big roadblocks I see.
I can see that. I can definitely see the procrastination because who wants to do things that they don't enjoy doing? Nobody. Like, I don't want to. I don't enjoy getting my stuff ready for taxes and doing all of that. I feel like I'm always so unorganized and I don't understand why. We get the same papers, they come in, like we have everything. I just don't, but I do. I get almost like, I don't know if it's that feeling of, I don't want to do this because why should I? Right? When we know
Yes.
we have to.
Or it's bad news. I think fear of hearing bad news keeps us from looking into it. And the reality is that the fear is actually the problem that's more insurmountable than just tackling the bad news. So if you have a tax bill, okay, now you know how much. Let's set up a payment plan. Let's figure out how we come up with that money versus not filing because you're scared of what you're going to find out. And then it accumulates. So just facing the fear and pulling in those supports to help you deal with whatever news it is you end up with.
Yeah. I commend you for being so, because you're easy to listen to. You're very engaging, and I think in the face of chaos, like when we are in that place, whether it's the procrastination or the pivoting too soon, whatever it is, I think that we need to have someone that grounds us because, like you said, the foundation, the root, is important. And if we don't have that, and you're dealing with things that aren't, there's no flex in the rules. There's specific rules that we have to follow when it comes to taxes and all of those things. right? So you're working within no real give there. But what you can give is who you are being with these people.
Yes. Yeah, I just really want to be that safe space, that sounding board. And I think, even someone who maybe doesn't have access to a coach or advisor, they're kind of not ready for that yet. Just finding an accountability partner, through Facebook
Yeah.
groups or local groups that you can just find someone that can be an objective sounding board for you. Is helpful because I have been running into like people I talk to and they're like, "Oh, I can't afford it." So then I say, "Let's help you find something that's in your budget." It might not be me, it might be just a friend, and a biz bestie, somebody, but let's find that support because I think that like you said at the beginning, being a business owner can be very lonely if you let
Mhm.
yourself get siloed.
Yeah, absolutely. And finding that accountability partner or a coach. And if you can't afford the coach right now, it's probably one of the best investments you will ever make because that person is there to support you through every aspect. It's not just the business, it's the life, right? Coaching is you're
Yeah.
there to support that person, and we as women know the answer. But we cover all that stuff piled on top of each other, and that power being way down at the bottom, sometimes we don't see it. And we're
Yeah.
handling everything else as well. So having someone like yourself or even, and I always say this on here, if we aren't the people for you, we will help you find the person for you. Because that's what's most important is we are here to allow women to see themselves as unstoppable because you are. And unstoppable doesn't just come in the good, easy times. Unstoppable comes when you made that transition from being a speech pathologist into what you're doing now. That's when unstoppable is the most important, right? Because you chose to do something for others and you've created a business to help them.
Yes, and I've been getting a lot of messages on social media about I don't own a business, so I can't use any of these skills. But, you know, I know so many women that are the CEO of their household. And you can take all those principles and you can make your personal finances thrive. You can use the principles to help your family thrive. The whole reason we go into any business, whether a job or own a business, is to provide for our family and
Yes.
and there's someone at home doing that. So I think that these kind of pivoting and being unstoppable, that just applies to every woman.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't. And that, what you just said was so important. Be the CEO of your own life. And that is hard sometimes for us, you know, because, it's a lot of responsibility. It's another hat that we get to wear. And that's not always easy.
Right. Yeah.
It's not.
And
But when you
sometimes it's
have
more
someone,
scary.
absolutely, absolutely. But if when we have each other to be able to, give a call to Becky and say, "Okay, I'm losing my mind. I don't know where I've made an error. There's nothing that can't be worked out." Right?
Right. Yes. Everything is fixable. Every
That's
problem is solvable. We might not like the solution, but there is a solution.
And another point that you had made when we had spoke as well was the clarity without shame. And being able to say whether you're making $100 a day, $1,000 a day, $1,000,000 a day, all of it is relevant. All of it is subjective because we still need to do the same steps no matter what the amount is. So
Exactly.
there is no shame and so can you explain that a little bit too, like in what you mean by that? Because that's,
Yes,
the way you word
definitely.
things is just it's so it makes me look at it and go, "Holy, I can have the confidence and financial peace because you give me that feeling of you can do this. Yes, you can.
Yes, I think that shame lives in that place of fear, and the fear of not being enough then translates into not having enough or vice versa. And so in our minds, we make how much what our bank account is, how many bills we owe, a reflection of who we are, our identity.
Mhm.
And so then we start to have shame about how we think we measure up or don't. But what I have found in working with women in different industries, different levels of business, some who aren't in business for themselves, but are managing their home, is that surprises are the real problem. And that's our fear should be of being surprised and caught off guard, not of the answer, not of the data. And so I really push hard to encourage every woman to do a money date. It can be with a spouse, a partner, or with yourself. And just take some time. Start with like 5-10 minutes. Start just logging in and seeing what the balances are, what's pending. Were these expected bills? Were these impulse buys? And just start to see your patterns. And then as you grow confident in logging in and having your little money date, it can become more detailed and bigger, and you can get into, the software, whether it's, Quicken or Rocket or YNAB, whatever, doesn't really matter. It's just giving you visibility so that you're not caught off guard and surprised. And the fear and the shame go away when you're armed with knowledge.
Yes. Yes. If we, and I think that it's important. I've had a guest on that she does finances for children. And she does that because she wants them to understand at a young age how important this is. Because I think we live in a day and age, I have grandkids, but they have this expectation and they want it now. They don't realize that, we had to work for our money to be able to afford to do this, whereas they just say, I want it and they get it. Right. So I think that
Yes. But
because
I
we
think
are
this
in
is
this,
the
yes.
sorry.
No,
This I think
please,
this
no,
is a
share.
huge problem for kiddos, right?
Yes.
Because when we were young, you know, this older generation, we went to the movie, my dad would hand us a $2 bill. It would get me into the movie and get a little snack. But it was actual money I saw go away. But I think children now are seeing parents swipe or tap their phone, and they don't understand the actual commodity exchange, and so they don't have a
Yes.
a good understanding of, "I want that toy or candy at the store. I
Yes.
don't understand why I can't have it,"
Mhm.
because they don't see that you have to give something in exchange. So I
I
love that
think
she's doing that. I think it's so needed.
absolutely. And I think too, I think that's the same with us as adults,
Yeah.
right? It's like, well, I,
Yes.
I need it. So what it doesn't matter. And then I get the credit card bill at the end of the month and go, oh my goodness, I spent, $3,000 this month on things that, okay, so this was groceries, this was bills, this was but where's this $500? Where was that? What did I spend on that? Whatever it is. I'm just using numbers, but right. What did I really spend on that? And then when you look at
Yes.
it, it's gone. You can't change it now.
Yeah, and the thing is that it's fine to spend that. Like, nobody's saying don't buy the latte or don't do the things. Just
Uh-uh.
know so that you don't get caught off guard at the end of the month and have that panic response of, "Where am I gonna get that money? What am I supposed to do now?" Just,
Mhm.
being aware.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think you had said about women so that we can be more intentional. And I think by being intentional in any aspect of our lives, when we can be intentional with how we think, how we react, how we respond. You know what I mean? How we deal with our daily um, tasks, our daily, whatever it is that our schedules, our tasks, things that come up surprisingly, because they do, things happen, life happens, but dealing with them and then having that security within ourselves to know we're capable because we've put the plans in action before is
Yes.
almost like it's the safety net that we didn't know we needed.
Yes, and I think that you hit the nail on the head with a plan, right? That
Mhm.
intention or plan. And things don't always go to plan. That's okay. You're going to be prepared though. You're going to have a plan B, or you're going to have like a backup. But just having a plan and
Mhm.
knowing that you have a way to deal with whatever comes your way, I think is huge
It
for
is.
all of us in every aspect of life.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. You've given me so many wonderful little tidbits and so much gold in this podcast because, you know, this doesn't just apply to your finances, ladies. This applies to life. Like Becky had said, like if we can have a plan and we can have some sort of itinerary of what is going to work for us on a regular, when those upsetting things come along, we can then handle that much easier. Right, Becky? Like,
Yeah.
talked about some really, really good things. I'm so sorry, my alarm just went off, everyone. I apologize.
Real life. That's real life.
Yeah, we're real life. Like, is there anything that, you know, in your life, did you ever feel at a point, like, was there ever a point in your life, especially during this transition? And I get it, that you felt that you weren't able to, but you realized that you could do it once you set your mind to doing so. Was there ever a time that you felt a little bit taken back, if you wanted to share, and then you went, no, I can do this. And with the proper plan or whatever, you got through it. Like, and that's kind of part of being unstoppable. And women need to understand that it's okay to have life throw you something. It is. It's okay.
Yes, yes. After I finished my certification, I was feeling very accomplished, I was like, this was all foreign to me. I passed the test. I'm ready. I, put myself out there. I got my first consult. I was very excited. However, my first consult was with a very um, strong woman, and she had been in business for herself for like 30 years. And and the consult went fine, but then when it came time for her to work with me, she was like, "I don't think you're ready for me." And I I didn't know what to do. I was like, "Oh," like I wasn't prepared for that. I thought that this
Yeah.
went so well. And I went home and I was just down. Like, I was having the biggest pity party. Like, what have I done? What have I gotten myself into? I
Yeah.
don't know enough. And so I really did at that point think about just stopping. And, I even talked to my husband. I was like, I just stayed at home and took care of the house when the kids were little. Maybe I do that again. And I have to give him credit because when our children were little, he was very big on they had to problem solve themselves. If they needed help, obviously we're there, but we didn't come to their rescue when they could do it. And he would always say, adapt and overcome, kid, adapt and overcome. And that's what he said to me that night that I was home and I was like, I can't do this. I'm made for healthcare. I'm not supposed to be in business. And, all the stories
Yeah.
we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
And he was like, adapt and overcome. Like if she wasn't your ideal client, you weren't her ideal advisor, find the right people.
Yeah.
Find the
I
people
love
who
that.
really need you. She didn't need you. She didn't need me, and she was in a field that was not my forte. She was not in a service-based business, and I know service-based businesses intimately. And so when
Yeah.
those kind of people, business owners come to me, I can help them immediately. I know all the levers. And
Yeah.
so what could have broken me and made me just quit and give up turned into a real learning experience. And I'm glad you asked about that because I revisit it every few months. I revisit and I think if I were to do that consult today, would she say I was ready for her? And I believe she would. I now have grown too, and I have systems in place, and I have the skills to and the connections to ask people when I don't know,
Yeah.
and I'm a much more confident business owner because of the challenge I faced early on.
Absolutely. And that is, I'm so happy that you could share that because really that's what we want people to understand. That was your first big consult. And you were like, okay, and you're putting all your eggs in one basket. And she said no. And you're like, and she didn't just say, no, thank you. I've gone with someone else. You're not ready for me. So not only is it a no, it's a like almost like a punch in the gut.
It's you. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But look, yeah. But you know what? I firmly believe that. I believe that in friendships. I believe that in relationships. I believe that in business. I believe that in this podcasting. I've met the most wonderful women that I was supposed to meet by doing the things that I'm doing. And if we can help women see what's possible, then we've done our jobs.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
believe that you're quite a help for any woman in business, especially service-based businesses. Because you do know and you can be their support. And that's what we need. The more support we have in our lives, the better we do. We're not made to be lone wolves. We're made to be. So that's why entrepreneurship can be so scary sometimes is because, okay, it's just me. If I make a mistake, I got no one to say, well, she told me to, or, whatever. But it's owning your worth and owning what you know is possible. So thank you for sharing your story. And you are a bright light, and I think that that's a wonderful thing for women to see on the other end when they need that support. You're calming, you're going to be more practical than emotional when it comes to, okay, I get it, but I'm going to bring you down a little bit and we're going to work through this and it's all going to be okay.
Yes. Well, and I just want to thank you for this podcast, listening to all the episodes. Every single one, I walk away with a little nugget that I'm tucking in my heart.
Good.
I told you earlier, I have sticky notes with little quotes I've
Yes, I
heard.
know.
And I think that the topics you're covering are so needed for women
Thank
across the board.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you very much. I really do. And all of Becky's information will be in our show notes. If there is anyone that you know that could use Becky's help or, would just like to maybe hear a little bit of the information that we've shared today, please like and follow us and share this with a friend and look for all of Becky's information that it's in the show notes because if you need some help, I think she's your girl. Thanks everyone for listening. Thank you, Becky, for being here again. I so
Thank
appreciate
you.
you. And we'll see you the next time on another episode. Bye, everyone. Have a beautiful day. Thank you for joining me on this episode of The Art of Being Unstoppable. Remember, your story matters, your voice matters, and your power is limitless. If you love today's conversation, subscribe, share it with the women in your life, and leave a review to help more women discover their unstoppable selves. I'm Vicki McDougall, and I'll see you in the next episode because your journey to unstoppable starts now.